Hey gang, Jack Lair here, and really quickly today I want to cover something that's been coming up more and more that I don't think people realize. And it's one of the reasons why a bunch of decisions are made in a bunch of different ways. And it's a thing called fiduciary duty or fiduciary responsibility. And the basic way that it works, and this is just a thing that is, so take your words of good, evil, bad, wrong, awesome, and just set them to the side. Basically what it is that it is a fiduciary duty is when you or some person has to do something in the best interest of somebody else. So what that means is that if a relative were to pass away and there is an executor of their will, then that executor has a fiduciary duty to the people who are named in the will. Okay? With me so far? All right. This is an important thing because depending on where you are, that fiduciary duty, which is a legal requirement, can push you in different directions. So for instance, when I worked at a financial institution and a company would set up an account for their employee, then there would be I did not have a fiduciary duty. Mine was information. I was not allowed to give financial advice. I was not allowed to give legal advice. So that's what I did. I would say, hey, here are how things work, much like what I'm doing with fiduciary duty right now. But what would happen is there would be an advisor attached. And this is where it got sticky, because the advisor attached to the account had a fiduciary responsibility to the company. Not to the company I was working for, not to the employees of that company, but to the company that had hired them to give the financial advice to the employees. Okay? So fiduciary duty, depending on where that's pointed, is what happens. So we'll walk through an example. Let's say there is a gaming company, and we will call them Faucet. And Faucet is a group of, we'll say 12 people. And they make a game. The game is amazing. And they get a bunch of money and they get bigger. So they hire some more people and then that keeps going. But they never actually do an IPO, an initial public offering. They don't have stocks. So there's no one to invest in them, at least not in a public area. Then all of the decisions made by that company, made by the owner of the company, made by the employees of the company, are all based on whatever they decide. So let's take company 2. We'll call it shower company. We'll just call it shower. Shower company gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually someone comes along and says, hey, we would like to buy you. We give you money, you are now ours. And this works the same way as an IPO. But with an IPO, you suddenly, either way, you have shareholders. So a CEO of a company, of shower company, that's been bought out and is now a publicly traded company, now has investors. The leadership, and specified by the rules of that, the laws of that state or that country, have a fiduciary responsibility, not to the customers, not to the employees, not to themselves, but to the shareholders. So the people who invested in them are the ones that they need to protect. So they have a responsibility to make those people money. Not make a good product, not make the best anything. They want to make money. Now, there are companies that do this amazingly, and their investors are understanding, and they can just go from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, and as long as number go relatively up, they're happy with that. But there are others who look at it and say, okay, well, hey, and this is a trend that's happened, and it all comes back to that fiduciary duty. It's like, okay, well, hey, we heard this company is doing a thing. So company A is doing a thing. And their number starts going up a little quicker. Now company B, their investors say, well, why aren't you doing that? And you can watch this happen all the way back to where it's like, Ultima Online did an MMO, and nobody really cared. They were Ultima, so they were a role-playing company, and they just did more role-playing stuff, but now it's online. And then Everquest came along, and I'm just hitting the big points. There are a bunch. This is a lot messier than it sounds, but Everquest was a little bit better. Okay, cool. Then World of Warcraft hit, and that's when a bunch of investors were looking at companies going, why aren't you making an MMO? And a bunch of companies tried to make MMOs, and they had no business making an MMO. Because what they didn't understand is that MMO was paying off decades worth of work. And just like Ultima, decades worth of work. Everquest with Sony was a really weird, like the fact that happened at all is just amazing. And then, like, oh, MMO was like, oh, MOBAs. Oh, yeah. What are they called? Battle Royales. Oh, live service. Oh, and now we're to AI. And it just goes around in a little circle. Because one company will do something interesting, they will make some money off of it, and then the investors of company B will look at them and go, well, why don't they do that? But here's the thing you need to remember. And I'm recording this days after DLSS 5 was announced, and it's one of the weirdest things for everybody to be weirded out when the CEO of NVIDIA goes out and is like, no, you're all wrong. This is going to be fantastic. But so let's go back to our original two companies. We've got company Faucet over here, and we've got company Shower over here. And Shower is a publicly owned company. So this company Faucet, can still do whatever they want. They may have loans that they're required to pay, but those are all set up by contracts, separate individual contracts, and most of the time, they do not have a fiduciary duty to their lenders. Once you're publicly traded, through either buyout or IPO, you are that company is no longer responsible to its customers or to its employees. The fiduciary duty, which is once again a law, goes to the shareholders. And that's why the CEO, you will hear them say absolutely banana stuff. But to the investors who don't know, they just look at it and they're like, hey, we heard game company over here, game company Faucet released a handheld device. And it's awesome. Everybody loves it. And they made lots of money. Why can't you? It's like, well, we don't have free reign to do that. We don't have the R&D. We don't have the physical thing. So that's why when you see an IPO or a publicly traded company, and they decide to cancel a game, close a studio, lay people off, that is all because that leadership has a fiduciary duty to the shareholders to make stock go up. But when you hear the CEO of a company say, no, this is the greatest thing ever, they're legally required to say that. If they say, no, you don't understand, it's going to be awesome, they're legally required to say that. As long as they don't lie to you, flat out lies, no good. But as long as they're like, no, we're doing, and that's when you get into the corporate speak of like, no, it's gonna maximize potential, and this will smooth workflows and all of that stuff. I think I wandered quite a bit in there, but I just wanted to let you guys know that there is a big lever that's being put on CEOs and studio heads, and it's called fiduciary duty. And it's not a made-up thing. It's a law. At least it is in Michigan, where I live. And you can look it up in the state or country where you live and figure out why these CEOs are saying these things that often seem completely bananas. And the people below them are going, what? I don't understand. But that's going to do it for me. I want to thank you very much for watching. And as always, play on.